Okay, everybody, welcome to a little Western flavored Who's Got My Money today. So how many of you guys feel like when you're building a startup, it's a little bit like the Wild Wild West? Yep, okay, lots and lots of hands, all right, I think that's pretty accurate. How many of you guys feel like when you come into an ecosystem, which is a collection of people and organizations and different investors and groups, you also feel like you're in the Wild Wild West, right? Okay, absolutely. There we go. How many of you guys know who these two gentlemen are? Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, that's one answer. That would be correct. Who else are they? Robert Redford and Paul Newman. Robert Redford is probably the closest person that I could introduce you guys to that's just like my dad, literally. And so I grew up being from Utah. I grew up having an experience of watching this movie. This movie is before my time, but it is in my top 3 favorite movies. And it come to realize, I didn't realize this till this morning, Robert Redford's my second favorite movie of all time as well. So I have a lot of affinity for the man, what he's done in the state of Utah, what he's done for movies and for cinematography and all that. But these guys, in this particular sense, I felt inspired to do something a little different. These guys were mavericks of the market. Now, I'm not going to aggrandize completely who they actually were. We're just going to pretend that they're the Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid from the movie, all right? Okay, so back to building a startup. So there's so many crazy things that you have to do as a startup founder. You know, and we know that a lot of it's about securing the bag, right? Let's be honest, right? Okay, this is what you got to go through. You got to dash after the investors, at least that's what you guys think. And you got to jump on trains, and you got to rob the trains, and you got to blow up the trains, and you have to blow up the safes to get to that capital, right? You got to do whatever is required, right? Well, sometimes you overdo it, like many founders do, where they blow up every relationship that they walk into, right? Does that feel right? Right? A little too much about getting the bag maybe in the beginning, right? So Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, more dynamite. I think they might have used too much dynamite. So they blew up the train. All right, sometimes it gets worse. Startup life is tough. It's the Wild Wild West. Sometimes you get back to the hole-in-the-wall gang and there's a mutiny, right? You've got your own team, your own clients, your own investors trying to overthrow you. I know David's got some opinions on this from the other side of things, being an investor. Yes, I understand that side as well. So you get into a mutiny. This is one of the greatest scenes in this movie if you guys have not seen this. So right before Butch Cassidy gets into a fight with Logan here, he says, okay. And by the way, the reason why Paul Newman, who was originally supposed to be Sundance Kid, who's the quiet character, the gunslinger, was chosen to actually be Butch Cassidy is because that's who Paul really was. He was a jokester in real life. And Butch Cassidy, even the real Butch Cassidy, was a jokester. He was very, very friendly with individuals, even though he had no problem alleviating you of things that you owned, right? So here we go. We've got Butch here saying, now wait a minute. Before we get in a knife fight, we got to establish the rules, right? Now this catches Logan off guard, and Butch didn't say he fights fair. So while he's distracted, he decides to show him who's boss. And here we go. This is rules in a knife fight. He uses the opportunity. I think founders, as long as you're not taking advantage of people, I think you have to use every opportunity in the market to actually make it and be successful. Okay.
How much did he get paid to let him kick him?
That's a good question. How much did he get paid? This is probably my favorite scene of the whole movie. I know some of you guys haven't seen it. It's absolutely worth watching. How many times have you guys been working with a partner and you get to a very critical, very stressful moment and you realize something very massive about them that is pretty important to know, right? So what's happening right here, this is obviously Butch and Sundance. They're having a shootout on the cliffs in some canyon in Utah, and they're pinned. Now they're great gun shooters, but they're outnumbered and they have really nowhere to go. So they're overlooking a cliff, a very large cliff, and Sundance wants to shoot it out, but Butch is like, are you freaking crazy? Like, we're not going to be able to shoot it out. And so, but Sundance thinks that there's no other option, and there's always another option. Feel free to come on in, guys. Don't be shy. Just don't walk in front of the camera. Thank you. So they're sitting here, they're having this conversation, and it's at this moment that Sundance reveals the reason he's scared is because he doesn't know how to swim. Butch is like, we should just jump. And Sundance is like, I don't know how to swim, which is probably not something a manly man wants to admit, right? Well, Butch then says to him, swim? Are you joking? The fall alone will probably kill us. Okay, let's get into our topic for today. I really do feel, though, that building a startup is like being in the wild, wild west. And I also feel that building ecosystems, being on the other side of it as an investor, as an accelerator owner, a venture studio owner, as an angel investor, as a private equity guy, there's a lot we can learn from ecosystems that get it right or that function well enough to create what we call a network effect around a founder. One of the reasons why Silicon Valley has been so great is because the pool of talent and success continues to feed into itself. The definition of a network effect from economics is the more that you add individuals or groups or numbers to a given ecosystem or group, the more valuable it becomes, right? So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a cheat sheet code here, kind of a smart cut on what I've observed from lots and lots of study. When I talk about the game of capital being rigged and how do you rig it for your own success, I believe that these 5 groups are the ones that typically in a great ecosystem are functioning to help support founders. Now, David and I are going to take a contrarian view that some of these are not as important as they can be and they should be. And so it doesn't mean that this is like gospel. But I want you guys to start thinking about, as a startup founder in the wild, wild west, how do I use these types of things to my advantage? Not in a way where you're taking advantage of people, but in a way that you use it to get traction and opportunity in your venture. Right? So number 1, I've seen that the municipalities, if they're doing their job right, they get out of the way when it's important to do so, and they encourage the founders to do really well. And I want you to be thinking about, if you're not known to these parties, how can these groups that have resources and opportunity and investment and money and capital to conduit, how can they conduit to you if they don't even know who you are? That's the thing kind of to be thinking about, right? Okay, moving on, universities. This one's polarizing. Universities have historically, in some cases, been very, very vital for tech transfer, those kinds of things, but it's not always the case, as David and I very much have come to see. Number 3, venture capital. Obviously, you guys know what this is. These are anybody that writes a check in the form of a business model that would be like a venture capital check, right? Obviously, these individuals can be really, really important in an ecosystem for a lot of reasons, but I want you to think beyond the money they write. I want you to think about some of the best that are out there that are truly value add, and those are the ones you want to have as partners when you get married anyway, where it's not just about their money, it's about the contracts they can bring, it's about the clients they can bring, it's about the opportunity they can bring. Private money. This is the money that stands behind the money. If you guys are not sure who has all the money, it is not the VCs. VCs typically are glorified brokers, unless they put a lot of their own money into a fund. I was one of those where a good amount of money in our fund was our personal money. And there's nothing wrong with VCs doing the very hard job of finding the best founders, partnering with them, and that means that they're working very closely with them. That means they're the coach on the edge of the field, doing what they can to make sure the founder that's in the game makes it. But private money is the one that has the FU money, right? So these are the family offices, the private equity groups. And if you're like, who is the private money? Go look at the names of the buildings in your city that have been donated, right? They're typically the ones that have enough money, they're thinking legacy in their lives, that they're going to donate. Last but not least, the community builders. So today we're going to hear from a couple of community builders. I think we have Josh in the room and some others that have joined us. And so I'm really excited to have their viewpoint. Why do I bring up the community builders? Guys, this is your opportunity as a founder, if you're so inclined to think of yourself as a founder and as a community builder. If you're one of the few founders that understands how to collect and get people together, that means you get to double dip. So in other words, if these guys represent or can represent the fundraising gods or the resource gods, I'm saying you could be a founder and be a community builder and thus be known to all of them. And if you historically look at Korea, if you look at China, if you look at some of these other countries, you will see patterns where these players, not all of them, but some of them or all of them, are involved in some of the greatest stories of how we've seen entire industries get shaped and formed. And so that's the reason I want you to be aware of who these players are. All right, I'm going to invite my good buddy, Mr. David Frazee, up onto the stage, and he's going to share some of his perspectives. We're going to move very quickly because we've got a lot to share. Mr. David, please come join us. David is in our fair midst here. He's chosen Vegas as his city, although he has done much of what he has done in Silicon Valley. And he and I are quite opinionated. Shocker. So let's get to that. Mr. David, And before that, real quick, David's just going to give us a real quick background as an attorney. He's worked with, funded, backed, supported, invested in over 8 unicorns. In his current portfolio of 10 companies, he has 4 unicorns. I want you guys to understand this, the statistical possibility of that. It's not chance, but it doesn't happen very often.
Actually, it does happen.
Okay, our first thing, go ahead.
No, there's about 20 venture funds that, I mean, let's ignore China, ignore AI. So this is old data because that's swamped the number of unicorns. The count is now, I think, deceptive. 80% of all US unicorns come from 20 venture funds at the Series C and Series A stage. Same people, every period, every time.
Yeah, that's the one to
You
talk
have to hold
from.
it up to my mouth?
Yeah, unfortunately. One's for recording, one's for
Okay.
you guys to hear.
Sorry, I'm used to being lapelled. 20 venture funds account for 80% of all US unicorns, and that's not an accident. I mean, our 40% success rate, our previous fund was 30%, is not only not unusual, it's a little on the low side. Some people do more than half. And so one of the questions I became obsessed with is what is it that the top 20 funds do that other people aren't doing? What do we do that doesn't show up in The Social Network, which is an Aaron Sorkin screenplay for entertainment, or doesn't show up in HBO's Silicon Valley, which is a comedy, not a documentary, by the way. And people treat it like that, and it's not. We do certain very specific things, which I teach all over the world, and I also work with, in addition to my venture fund, work with 24 national governments over the last 25 years on innovation policy, starting with the PRC in the 90s, all the way all over Latin America, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, South Africa. How do you create dense entrepreneurial ecosystems? So those are really the questions that have animated me, and our investment thesis relates to best practices and also emerging countries. So half our deals are in the emerging world, half are in the US, but they have global application. Yeah.
Let's talk about extraordinary deals and why we think that's the first thing we should talk about.
You have to reverse engineer this whole thing. So my bosses, 15 of our $18 million is our money, but we work for other people. We work for pension funds, retirement funds, family offices. So what is it they're looking for to give us money? They're looking for 40% IRR, which is year-over-year compound growth, because they can invest in crypto, real estate funds, the S&P 500, which is 10.9% over 200 years, which frankly, all of you should be doing in your retirement. Just index funds, forget about it. So we have to beat that number substantially. For us to do that, what do we have to do? We have to find the best deals wherever they are. We will go to places like China and Brazil, which are literally the worst places in the world to do business in. You're crawling over broken glass. But there are hundreds of billions of dollars going into those markets because the deals are there. Contrarily, you have certain governments like Chile who've made it so easy to invest in the country that don't attract those dollars because the deals aren't there. So you don't want governments to make your life hard, but it's not about the governments, it's about the deals. We follow deals. Good deals not only attract the best investors, which are also player coaches, because we don't just invest and go play golf. I don't know how to play golf. We work hard as part of your team, and all the best ones do. That's one of our characteristics of the top funds, because we've actually done it. We're not people pretending to have done this, we've done this.
Or when the founder decides to do something to blow up themselves with the train or something like that.
Yeah, no,
we have to get involved, and we're happy to do that.
Yeah, we do that way too often, unfortunately. By the way, to get fired, you basically have to both steal and sexually harass in combo, it seems.
Don't be an a-hole, so that's a...
So there's 8 billion people to have sex with, not your employees. This is so easy, and don't steal from the company. Don't expense the strip club, just don't. You will be fired at the next board meeting in 10 seconds, period. So anyway, best deals also create entrepreneurs who then go off and start new companies, who invest in each other, who serve as advisors, serve as boards. People from those companies go off and start companies. And there's some slides that I hope I can show you in a second. If you look at the emergence of entrepreneurial ecosystems, that's what works. The traditional way we think about startups is this graph here. I don't know if anyone knows what Drake's law is, but it's the probability, or it's how you compute the number of planets that have life. And so how many planets are there, how many stars are there, how many have planets, how many are at the right zone where everything's not incinerated, how many have the building blocks of carbon and nitrogen and oxygen, how many advance to a certain stage, how many don't blow themselves up through technology. So at the end of this, you have the number of planets in the universe that have life. That's the way we think about entrepreneurship, generally from policy perspective. We just do these things in sequence, have a big enough pipeline, some will survive. That's actually the wrong way to think about it. The way you think about it is a primordial soup, which is how life evolves in reality. And this, I'm going to turn for a second. So this one is Buenos Aires, which I had some role in, some of these core companies here, which is a few small companies in the late 1990s effectively seeded the entire ecosystem. You know, Kazakh Ventures, which is the leading South American venture fund, are the founders of Mercado Libre. They've gone off, not only the angel investors who invested, but all those entrepreneurs have funded all of these other companies.
See how a founder becoming a funder has such a big impact? This is the reason why Fusion 42 is focused on creating the best founders that become founder funders.
You need, but this is actually deceptively simple. So on the next one, this is Spain.
Deceptively simple.
This is Spain, the Spanish startup ecosystem. If you could actually study this, like walk up to it, you will see this is not a hub and spoke model. And by the way, one of my views is things don't revolve around Silicon Valley. I was based there for 30 years, but it's not like everything goes in and out. Entrepreneurship is a mesh everywhere. People go from South Africa to Brazil, Brazil to China.
This should be very good news to all of you guys.
Yeah. Entrepreneurship is where entrepreneurship is. But this is what it actually looks like when you map it. And it looks like an impossible tangle, but that's what it is. You will advise 10 companies, you will give advice, you will be the shadow CFO, or you'll be the outsourced chief operations officer or data analyst. It's people paying it forward, and it's a dense mesh, but you need to have the raw ingredients for life, which include openness. So in entrepreneurial ecosystems where you have gatekeepers who are more about protecting their turf, entrepreneurship dies. Where you have people that exclude the most knowledgeable and competent from the outside, entrepreneurship dies. Talent can be locals, many of whom generally leave and never come back, the brain drain. But they structurally, Vegas is an emerging country. I'll make that argument if you want to hear it someday. No, I mean, there's 7 families that control everything. We call them casinos here, as opposed to like Central American, families that control the sugar mills. The best students leave and never come back. You have expats, guys like me who come in and we're excluded because no one wants us part of it, because we show the emperor has no clothes sometimes. You know how many Silicon Valley VCs and entrepreneurs live here because of the taxes?
You guys know how many family offices are here? Yeah.
But they're not involved in the entrepreneurship because the gatekeepers don't let us talk. I didn't speak at Startup Week. I'm not invited. Why is that? Why are the other top VCs who live here not invited? Because none of them spoke either. Do you ask yourself that? So
it's also a bit of a cowboy state. Many of these folks, when they're about to exit their companies or when they want to come and be left alone, they come here. And that's pretty typical of family offices and ultra high net worths. They do want to be left alone, and they do want to invest when they want to invest, when they want to look at a deal, versus get harangued by founders all the time. 2 things I want to say on what David's saying real quick. Guys, when we do the Raise Fundraising Summit, which is twice a year, and the average panelist has raised over 100 million, and they're very casually saying, I raised 350 million, 650 million, I've raised 2 billion. It's interesting when you ask these investors, how did you come to meet the founder that you funded? It's through another founder. So when he talks about reciprocity, you're just unlocking capital karma for yourself by showing up in the danger room and Telegram at Fusion 42 and giving feedback to the other founders' 2-minute pitches. Why is that good for you? It's good for you because you get to sit in the seat of an investor. Would I invest in this? What would need to shift for me to feel good about this? What market, traction should they have? Or another way to look at it is the resources and relationships you are looking for your venture are sitting in the warm market of another founder. And so are you taking the time to show some love and to understand that founder too shares a dream and has the special kind of crazy that you also have?
Yeah, alternative our deals in this fund were referrals. I mean, by the way, when we first invested, I would read every one of the 300 emails that came to my inbox every month. And if you were a woman or person of color, there was a 100% chance I would meet with you in person. But every deal we ended up investing in was referred to us, because that's just the nature of the beast. Game knows game. And we work with people who know what they're looking at. So,
primordial soup.
Yeah, so the primordial soup, open networks, talent. Talent doesn't have to be, look at China as an example. One of the first things that I consulted with their government on is how do you jumpstart the venture capital industry? And at first you have outsiders come in, they mentor, they work together, and now the Chinese VC industry is kind of on its own. They don't need our help anymore. So you want the best player coaches as investors. They're not just checks. And one of the worst things you can do is start treating us like an ATM machine, because it's such, I hate sometimes going to events because I feel like a cheap stripper. People are just coming up putting business plans, and talk to me like a human, and listen to me, because when you're challenged and you don't have a beginner's mind, or you don't use a scientific method like lean startup, agile growth hacking, data analytics, and human-centered design, I don't take you seriously, because you don't know what you're doing. And the best ecosystems also create the base education. We don't wake up thinking we know calculus the day we're born. We don't think you can play in the World Cup the day you're born. You learn skills over decades. You learn how to pass and dribble. You learn basic math. Entrepreneurship is one thing we somehow think people are just born with because it's genius. It's not. It's scientific method. It's data and test and experiment and building and measuring and learning.
And that's the reason why when you're at Fusion 42, we tell you guys you need to start thinking of yourselves as startup scientists. You need to verify and validate before you build. You need to make sure you do not go build a product without doing 100, 200, 300 client interviews to know if you're working on the right problem. This is one of the biggest reasons why startups end up failing. And he's bringing this up as this is a skill set. Understanding what the market wants is something you build as a skill set. Understanding and having the instinct is something you earn through the effort that you put into understanding what you're building. We have a founder in here that exited a company and then decided he was going to build 15 different home service industry services in one company. That means pest control, that means cutting lawns, that means all that. He went out, got a license in every single one of those and ran each one of those independently for a year to understand the customer. How many of you guys took that kind of massive action? Isn't that freaking crazy? That is crazy. When a founder says that to me, I'm like, you either must be crazy or from Utah or probably both. The Utah founders are willing to do some pretty wild things because they're used to being rejected. The second thing I was going to say, and we'll get back to this, is fundraising is also a skill set. You're always pitching to get client and customers. You're always pitching to raise capital, and you're always pitching to get great talent on your team that follows the vision of what you're doing. So fundraising is absolutely a skill set, and if you don't start with the beginner's mind, this is one of the first things I heard come out of David's mouth, and I knew we were going to be buddies. Because obviously he's very sharp, knows what he's doing, has a lot of experience, but he still has a beginner's mind. Every single day we're learning about what the best practices are to help the innovators and the future pioneers of the future. And you need to wake up that way too. I cannot tell you, we're doing a big trip to Dubai, which we'll talk about later. We're taking 50 founders. I cannot tell you how unattractive it is when a founder thinks that they've got everything figured out. I've already got the round sewn up. Cool, it's been 6 weeks. You closed the round? I didn't think so, right? Or they think they know everything about fundraising when most of the time they do not.
Yeah, by the way, we don't care about your business plan. I don't care how passionate you are. It doesn't matter to me. If the World Cup's on the line, I don't put the most passionate fan from the stands on the penalty kick mark. I put Lionel Messi. Well, Messi is like a bad example because he shanked in the Copa America final once, but you put the best PK taker. We invest in numbers, we invest in businesses. Facebook, when it started to raise money, was like the 20th social network. It was already over MySpace 1. Many of you are old enough to remember that, some aren't. Why did money dogpile in? Because of two things. Value, growth. Within 30 days of going to a college campus, because it used to be you had to have a certain .edu domain to be part of Facebook, 70% of all students were on it. And they were spending 3 hours a week on average, and many people were on every single day. You had value, which is engagement. You had growth. The smart money knew they were going to win. We now know what our factors are because of COVID. At a certain infectiousness rate, the planet's going to get it. That's what Facebook was. I don't even know if Facebook had a deck. When Sean Parker invested, I don't know. I'm going to say they didn't, but it doesn't matter. We've invested in companies without decks because
decks
numbers.
and data rooms never get you funded anyway. It's there to confirm something that we already believe to be true about you.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to be spending all this time. I mean, when I go speak all over the world, people say we want to talk about fundraising. And I used to oblige that, so I talk about Series A preferred and liquidation preferences, and the importance of minority stakes, which does matter. You should know that stuff. But then I realized what I really want to tell you is this is all irrelevant. If you have a business which is a viral growth machine, you'll figure that stuff out. Your problem why you're not getting funded has nothing to do with how you pitch. It's because your business fundamentally isn't as beautiful as you think it is. And that doesn't mean you don't have the right problem. If you love the problem, not your solution, you will be successful. It's hard to screw up too badly.
But most founders love the product more than the problem. That's the issue, is you're never going to get to market readiness because you built a product trying to find a problem. You need to focus on the problem and then let the solution rotate around that as you figure out, okay, because inside of a problem, there's a bunch of niches, right? If we get really simplistic about it, it comes down to how good is your offer against against what audience? And there's a bunch of variability in both of those. And either your offer sucks or it's the wrong audience. And founders spend way too much time dicking around trying to figure out what to do with the product instead of understanding, have I even started at the right fundamental start? So as a guy that's really been focused on simplifying and automating fundraising processes and building software to do that for several years, I realized, oh my gosh, I can put as many founders and funders together as possible. Guys, we track all the new funds. Every single week, I'm one of maybe 6 organizations on earth that know how much fresh capital has hit the market, ready to be deployed inside of venture. But that doesn't matter if the founders are not market ready. Because when we put 900 investors that we personally call, do you have money, are you ready to deploy, with 4,500 startups, here's what happened. Some of them got funded, sure. But what we too long didn't read is that founders don't know how to get to market. They don't understand this idea that do not build what you cannot sell. Do not build what the market does not want to buy. And it turns out funders don't think it's their job to help you to get there. Their job is to pick the winners. And so that's a huge, 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 huge fundamental problem that founders have. And this is the reason why we're big fans of Lean, is going there and kind of, again, beginner's mind, holding loosely what you think you believe as long as the problem is sacrosanct and that the clients come first.
By the way, all of you should, if you've not read the book The Lean Startup by Eric Ries, you need to just go buy a copy and read it. You'll save $200,000 of a business school education for $20. And I say that at major world business schools when I teach. I also say at those same business schools, the average drug dealer knows more about business than your entire faculty.
Which is the reason we're talking about ecosystems and outlaws, right?
And by the way, many of the Arthur Rock Entrepreneurship Center at Harvard Business School are my investors because they're in my fund. So I say that even, I'll say this in front of them. I'm not a shy person. By the way, I just want to say one thing about the movie. So the #1 song on Billboard the day I was born was Raindrops Keep Falling on Your Head, which is the theme song
for this movie.
For the movie.
We'll play it later.
Backrack and David. And what the movie to me really about, to the extent it has, I haven't rewatched it. I would, if I'd known this was happening, I would have. But the big lesson about business from the movie is about pivoting. What was happening was a traditional model they had of robbing trains didn't work as they became more industrialized and mechanized. Security increased and the incumbents fought back with posses to crack down on crime. And so how do you adapt? And so their pivot was a bad pivot, which is go to Bolivia. For those who know the story, I'm not trying to ruin it for you. In real life, they went to Bolivia where there wasn't the mechanization and security, thinking they could have old school trains to rob and banks to rob. And they ended up dying when the military surrounded them and killed them. Allegedly, there's stories they survived, which are not true. So this is about, and even jumping off the cliff, when you're faced with certain death, do you take the certain death or do you take the leap? And Reid Hoffman, who's a friend of mine who founded LinkedIn, one of the things he says is, part of your job as an entrepreneur is to jump off a cliff and build a parachute before you hit the ground.
And an airplane, that's your startup.
Yeah, or an airplane. The story goes both ways. So it's about pivoting, and when you know what you have done does not work, what do you do to adapt? Because the world never cooperates with you and no market stays untouched. And many times you poke the bear and you think the incumbents are slow and stupid and won't ever do anything, but suddenly they have $80 million research and development budgets to kill you. So what are you going to do?
So talent's up here. Before we move on, I just want to say, guys, too many times I think founders don't ask themselves about their own level of talent and have kind of a sober willingness to understand that their job is to bring the best people in the world into their startup that are better than they are. You can't think that they're better than you are if you think that you're fully formed and ready to rock and roll on every single topic. And guys, I see this so often where founders are not willing to ask themselves, how am I showing up? This isn't just like your skills, this is your soft skills. My opinion is hard skills are not what really get us paid in life, it's our soft skills. Our leadership skills, our willingness to learn. If you're a founder and you've got a startup, you're a feedback machine. Coming back to pivoting. It's all about feedback, iteration, execution. Feedback, iteration, execution. It is that is the adaptive cycle that creates founders and winning teams that win every single time. All right, investors and advisors.
Yeah, one of the problems in a new startup environment is the money. I spend a lot of time, especially in Latin America, trying to explain to investors, no, we don't take majority control. That's real estate, that's retail, that's the world you come from. We do the opposite. Venture takes 20%, 25%, maybe 30% in a round. Now, there's ways we protect ourselves as the minority holder, which is not what we're talking about today, but there's a whole variety of best practices. People, especially on the investor side, believe in vanity metrics accounting, which is I only want to see revenue traction. And That's nice. You do have to make money, by the way. This is a business. But there are things that will predict that over time. What you have to focus on is innovation accounting. At every step of my chain of value creation, whatever it is, what am I doing to create exponential growth? Exponential growth. We look for exponential trends, not linear trends. Our brains are not wired for that. So good investors, again, are player coaches. They've done it. By the way, I grew a startup to $1.8 billion or $1.6 billion, so I've been on that side of it too. The best investors have been in the trenches. They're not people who have daddy's money, who've never done this, who are playing venture. Venture capital is cool. It's what all the cool kids are doing. So you want to be one of the cool kids. No, I want people who have been in the trenches at night where they had to lay their friends off or they're worried about it the next day. Everything is going wrong. They're trying to figure out, Ben Horowitz wrote the book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, where he talks about the wartime CEO. You want people around you who have been there too. And that's what it's really like. That's the fantasy is always, in retrospect, I knew it the whole time. I was a genius. Because of my great perseverance, I overcame. And that's always nonsense. That is always not. It's self-serving garbage that people tell or business school professors for the case studies, but it's not how it works. So bad investors kill ecosystems. Bad investors kill ecosystems. Bad investors also are not taken seriously by real investors elsewhere, because the best deals all over the world that I work with, we respect the local investors. So if someone, from South Africa says, we have the chosen one, I will take that call, I will get on a flight, I will go deal with it. I don't know any fund in Vegas that I would do the same for. And I live here, by the way. I want to build this community because I grew up poor. I want poverty transformed. I don't want to have to go out of state anymore for my health care because it's so bad here. I would like to up the game, and I would like a diversified economy, because guess what? Entertainment and gambling didn't work so hot in COVID, and there's a recession and a boycott happening. We might want to diversify. It could be good for us.
If you guys saw the picture of David standing in front of his house, it looked like it came out of the Wild Wild West. That you grew up poor. When he says he grew up poor, he grew up poor. What's not needed? Let's cover that before we move on and get some folks up on stage with us.
Yeah, I think there's a fetishization of a few things. One is university research in deep tech and PhDs and advanced degrees from elite universities.
Explain this one.
So I'll just give you an example. So I used to be a lawyer and ran one of the largest technology practice groups in the world. And all the IPOs I worked on, all the accountants and lawyers were Harvard, Chicago, Stanford, all the elite schools. The founders went to UCSB for a year and dropped out, maybe didn't go to college at all, or they went to some no-name university, because they took the risk and they had beginner's mind. The people that thought they had to be right, because that's how they achieved, failed, because they were too brittle, not adaptable, and they couldn't admit that their vision wasn't right. They loved themselves and their solution's not the problem. So one, you don't need an elite education or any education to do this. Entrepreneurs grow up like weeds between the cracks in a sidewalk. They just exist. And I spent time in Saudi Arabia trying to explain to them, instead of trying to compete with Taiwan and the US on semiconductors and AI, why don't you just invest in the women who are building baby delivery products? Oh yeah, they can't get a business license, they don't have a penis. Because only men can do that. I mean, you have talent right in front of you. Just invest in the talent you actually have. You don't need to fetishize this research. So academics generally make poor entrepreneurs, as do lawyers and doctors. I mean, I'll pick on you a bit here. You want just entrepreneurship wherever it exists. And you don't need to have a STEM background. One of the great revolutions about to happen is non-technical founders will no longer be discriminated against versus technical founders. By the way, we will invest in non-tech founders,
baby.
But we are rare. Most of the funds do not agree with me on this. They will only invest in tech founder. That's about to change. And so STEM, deep tech and science and universities are not the enemy of innovation. It'd be nice if they work, but you don't need it. You just don't need it.
And guys, in order for this to work where founders are not the most educated or went to school or whatever, that means that you have to be the kind of founder that's willing to learn. It means you have to be the kind of founder that's going to pivot, that they're willing to take feedback. I think the founder that takes the most feedback and that is willing to have the most volume of at-bats, that can then know what feedback is valid and what do I got to stick to as my instinct of the founder of this company. That's what makes, I think, for a really incredible founder. But if you look at like some of the founders that have been extremely successful, it's because of the volume of practice of points they put on the board to make up for the lack of experience they might have from something else. And usually it comes down to being more focused on sales than the vast majority of founders are willing to be. In a continuum of, I talked to 5 people and I put 200 grand of my own money in, and I took massive action and talked to 1,000 before I built something, founders are on this end. Because you guys would rather go into your little bat cave and be more focused on building your product. In the age of AI, you're going to get taken to the cleaners, because AI allows for fast adaptation and iteration and feedback.
Yeah, we also have we fetishize youth. We have exactly 0 CEOs in my portfolio under the age of 40. 0. And the previous fund was also 0. Because I don't want to pay expensive lessons. I mean, some of those work out and they're great, but like someone else can pay for those.
If you're 22, you haven't been punched in the face a bunch.
You got. I mean, some of them work out. Like but
the data shows overwhelmingly, though, that in their 40s and 50s is when founders typically do the best. They've got more to lose. They've got experience from experiencing life and seeing that life can be difficult, and they've got high stakes. They need to perform. You know?
But that's also, investors unfortunately have this, it's like Hollywood, it's like the cult of youth. And so investors inadvertently overlook the best founders because they think it has to be some young, hotshot 20-year-old kid who dropped out of Harvard. And you're just, I mean, you may get lucky. And we have survivor bias because we look at the few that worked out, but you don't look at the 1,000 that failed. And even if they do work, we have 2 rules in venture. One is we want to make money, but 2, with no drama.
Yes.
And so there's lots and lots of drama with younger. You can be mature as a young person, so I'm not saying that's not possible, but the amount of drama I have to put up with from younger entrepreneurs is just not worth my time. It's just, my life's too short. I'll pass. I've passed on multiple unicorns because of the no asshole rule.
Yep. That's a thing, by the way, guys. This is very consistent among the value add VCs and investors out there. We all have a no a-hole rule. And if I find out a founder's more difficult, I want to charge them more to do anything. Like if they're coming to an event, we don't charge for most of our events, but for example, this Dubai trip, we're subsidizing a good portion of it for the founders that we have selected. I said to my partner, I was like, look, these guys are going to be high maintenance. I'm telling you right now, we should charge them more because this is going to be way more work. And that's exactly what's happened with them. They've been more difficult. Okay, we've got to keep moving. We've got some folks that Dave and I want to kind of ask some questions to. Okay. What we're going to do is, Matt, please come up to stage. Matt is a buddy of ours. He is working on standing up a healthcare network called Prime Partners. He's going to come sit here since he's close to David with the microphone. And we want to hear real quick, you had an exit. You built a healthcare company and exited for 8 figures in 3 years. Do you have anything you want to say? Because you've done a lot when it comes to government work, getting government money, having to be in that, and being a healthcare side of things. You've had to work very close with the government. Do you have much to say about ecosystems and how you guys have successfully plugged into that?
Well, I'll piggyback off what Dave said. So I had a VC, and he's spot on. If you are not coachable as a founder, you will fail. My VC was in my industry for 40 years, so I was a good mentor. He was a good mentor, but I was willing to be coached. If you're not coachable, you'll fail. Does that make sense? And I love what he said. A business plan, I can...
Don't make me laugh.
Yeah, I can throw those away. Now, for me as a founder, it's a skill set because I grew up with a learning disability. I read and write at a 4th grade level. And so...
Me too.
Yeah, hey, welcome to the short bus. All right. And so what I have, my skill set and talent is I can get things done very quickly. And me and Kurt see things that most people can't see, if that makes sense. So I think that's what VCs look for, is problem solvers, because that's all business is. It's a bunch of problems you have to solve every day. So
yeah. Do you have a question for him before we move on?
I didn't know what was going on.
I wasn't prepared for that.
No, it's okay. That's fine. If you've got one, great. If not, we've got lots of folks that we're going to plug.
I'm actually always curious to ask, how did you know at the early stages you were successful versus not successful, and did you ever have to pivot?
Yeah, early stages I failed a lot, so I learned failure very quickly. So I learned success was through people and networking. That was my power. I can get the right talent in the room. So I always got the smarter people in the room, and my dad was an entrepreneur, so I watched him as I grew up. So I think early years I just knew I can read people very well, so that was my gift. I can know if you're full of shit or not. Sorry the language, but so I would fire people very quickly, and that is really important in your organization because your culture will go sideways if you don't.
Awesome. Okay, shout out to Shaq from GoEd holding it down here in Nevada. Thank you so much. Okay, next we are going to pull up Miss Alicia Mejia. Real quick, you're going to come sit over here next to David. Alicia is a founder herself. She's building Worldwide Love Story. The reason I want to pull her up is she is an exemplary example of a founder that understands the different players and is willing to play with everyone and play very well. I like to think that, Josh from Tech Alley, myself at Fusion 42, I'd like to think that we do our best to play well, but Alicia really does a great job. So could you tell us real quick, like, what have you seen? You've been up to Seattle, you spend a lot of time with different ecosystems. Like, what have you seen that actually really works well, that functions that we get to bring into our ecosystem here? And it's not to say things are not working here, guys. This is the greatest city in the freaking world to create, and I love it so much. But we're an infant in the maturity of the ecosystem. And that's a good thing if you're a visionary leader. It's a bad thing if you need to be handheld. And since I run a professional babysitting service over at Fusion 42 for founders, I kind of understand the difference between founders that are ready to be enrollers and be leaders in an ecosystem where they can be counted on to help support building that network effect that we want to create. So what are your thoughts on ecosystem stuff you've seen?
I think what really stood out for me, first of all, I love Vegas, right? Like, no question. And I really think it's an exciting time because we get to build the relationships and we get to decide, and have a lot of direct input about how we think that this ecosystem should be and grow. That said, there are those like interpersonal things that make it a little bit difficult in the gatekeeping and so on that David spoke to earlier. But when it comes to Seattle, like what I really loved about being up there was it was almost as though it's Vegas's like older sister or brother, older sibling, in the sense that like there was a lot of transparency, and I was just like, wow, I really like who you are, like as an ecosystem, and it was the transparency for me. And to your point of like, there's a lot of high net worth individuals that do live here that want to be left alone. There are many exited founders who have now cycled through to become funders, and those people are very accessible. For example, this year actually for the last 2 years at Seattle's Tech Week, they have like a matchmaking thing where instead of founders having to be overbearing or whatnot to go like smoke out who the high net worth individuals are, well, you know what I mean? You kind of have to flush them out.
You're guilty, some of you, you know who you are.
Flush them out a little bit. But it was cool because you had like this like a dating thing where they just had the funders were pitching us 2 minutes. This is what we stand for. This is the amount of capital that we have to deploy. This is where we're at. These are our strengths, and this is where we can help you. We're at table 12. Come see us. And I was just like, my jaw hit the floor. So I just feel like it's an aspirational thing, but in order for that to happen, we need enough funders that exit and stay to become these funders. And not to plug Fusion 42 for the millionth time, but I'll do it anyways. I just feel like they're one of the best, if not the best organization that really practices what they preach in terms of trying to really get that people through that cycle in a really transparent way.
Thank you. David, anything for Alicia?
Yeah. So you have a magic wand for one day and you can change one thing about Vegas's ecosystem.
Love it.
Like, what's the first thing you change?
I don't know what I would change. I think what I would do is I would have like this big round table. I would bring everybody to the table and we would have this conversation. We would hash out what the hell is everyone's problem so we can get on the same page and then make a plan to move forward together.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Thank you, Alicia, very much. Next up, go ahead and share.
Can I say one? There's actually a very important thing she said. I don't know if you ever heard the adage, if you want money, ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for money.
Yes.
I mean, before you start hitting me up for your $500,000 round, why don't you talk to me about what your startup is and the numbers and the passion and ask for help? Because when we know how to say we'd like to invest. It's not like, oh my God, she wanted advice, I guess we can't give her money. Like if we're excited, we're gonna be excited, but get my attention and show you're coachable and wanna learn and form those relationships early, even when it's too early. If you're at the Series C, start talking to Series A investors. What would you need to see to invest? You're at the Series A, talk to Series B investors. We do that, by the way, because I can't invest an A check in you unless I know you can get to the Series B. Otherwise, we're dead. Because we're the ones that get crammed down. They'll re-up you, but I lose all my investment. So you should do that too. Who is your next milestone check from? Go find out what they need today. You don't have to guess, they'll tell you.
This is the reason, guys, why we publish all of the funds that hit the market every single week, right? In the last couple of weeks, it's $6.12 billion across 37 funds, $6.9 billion across 17 funds, $7.9 billion across 35 funds. We show the founders this because founders think that capital is the problem. It's almost never the problem. There's unlimited amounts of capital out there, and great capital chases great founders and great projects, not the other way around. You chasing it instead of making sure you're market ready is a fool's errand. But what we hope for when we show the founders this, because you can get it in the newsletter if you're part of the program, or you can get it for free in Telegram inside the Investor Connect channel, is we hope that the founders understand, look at the funds that are coming out and do one of two things. Either make a mental note that when you're ready to pitch in 6 weeks or 2 months or 3 months, that they're going to be on your list. Or you could be smart and you could reach out to them with questions. You could reach out to them with value. I brought you a founder that I think matches your thesis. You could bring a bottle of wine to the party to make sure that you're leading with some value to get on their radar. Start the relationship there versus a cold outreach. It will not work as well. Mr. Joshua Stacy is up here on stage with us from TB 1000, or is it 100? It's 1000. The big
This frickin' guy. Big TB.
Well,
like Big Technology Builders, Project 1000.
There we go. Okay. So he's better at announcing himself. So one of the things I like about Josh is he's willing to get involved in the community here, regardless of whether it has to do just with startups. So he ran for Senate last year and scared some
28% of the vote with $1,500. Apparently I'm compelling.
Awesome. So talk to us about your thoughts on ecosystem and what you think works well, what doesn't work well, real quick.
All right, I'm going to pick on Alicia slightly because I think she's shared an idea that sounds good, but in application's a little more ugly. I think if we had one big round table, not everybody would sit at it. Or if they did, some would bring their knives.
1,000%. Oh, yes.
Right, and so so I've been here for almost 4 years, I guess.
And by the way, if anyone thinks this only happens in Vegas, you are sorely mistaken. This happens in almost every single ecosystem. Some of them get it together, some of them don't as much.
Yeah, I mean, it's human nature and it's people. There is going, so when I came here, I said, all right, I'm just going to try to reach out to everybody and be friendly. That's who I am. That's what I dig. What I noticed is over time, some people weren't as friendly as perhaps others, and that's fine. We don't have to all be friendly. But there's some people that have, I guess, sort of want to see the village burn, so to speak. And I made the decision about a year ago.
Accurate.
Right. About a year ago, I made the decision I was going to go to war. And you might think, well, that's not a very friendly thing. You said you're a friendly guy, Josh. I go, yeah. Well, in the Book of Mormon, there's this guy, Captain Moroni. He gets this title of Liberty going. He was a good man, but there's things he's willing to throw down for. And I've been seeing in community a lot of people working really hard at doing some really cool things. And there's some folks that have not just a lot of passion for what they're doing, but they really want to build something that scales. Like David was saying, we do need a more diversified economy in Las Vegas. I'm a tech founder. I can make money literally anywhere in the world. It doesn't really matter. But I love Vegas. This is home. It's got a long and rich history going to the regulatory environment. It's got a long and rich history of telling the federal government to fuck itself, which makes building emerging technologies really an exciting spot, because I just ran for office against a lot of the people that are setting policy, and well, I made some messages. So all that to say, I think that the march forward, if you're like, hey, I love Las Vegas, I really want to see this place grow, be prepared to be aggressively agreeable, and if someone's a part of the problem, just don't pay them no mind. That's my best plan so far.
Questions for Josh? Aggressively agreeable.
Well, I've also been here 4 years, and I reached out to everyone when I got here saying, I'm in town, I teach this stuff all over the world, I'll do it for free because I don't need your money. Yeah. And I just, progress and innovation anywhere is the increase of humanity everywhere. And so the fact that people would rather have their personal fiefdoms and borders and egos and take government money, which is the most offensive part of it. Like, they're literally taking taxpayer money, which to me, I'm not naive, but I still have a little bit of Boy Scout in me. That's a sacred trust. Yeah. That you have an obligation morally to maximize the diffusion of knowledge and entrepreneurship and innovation, because this is the greatest tool of substantive opportunity, equality, poverty alleviation. And so to hoard it and to gatekeep is immoral and intellectually criminal. So I don't know if it's a question other than we need to share some names offline, because I know we're talking about the same people.
We need to get the crew together.
Yes.
Sorry. So
yes. We got to keep moving. Here.
Well, just real quick. So in order to, as part of my war, in war there's conflict, the last session here, there's a Sin City Programmers. And what's happening is, because I am very engineering minded, I've been making nice with a lot of the engineering talent, making some opportunities here as best I can. All that to say, I do think there's going to be a bottleneck. There is a demand for engineering talent in Las Vegas, and most of them are going to be friends with me. So if the powers that be that don't want to play nice want engineering talent in town, maybe we should try to play nice. That's all. Thank you, everyone.
All right, awesome. Okay, we've got my kind of new buddy on the back row, angel investor poker player. Come on down, buddy. You know who you are.
Another good job.
Yes. Yay. Come on, Josh. Come on down quickly. Thank you so much. So, proof that talent comes in different forms. Come join us over here, Josh. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay, so you're involved in different groups around town. You're an angel investor. You've had success, which brought you some money that you get to play around with. Talk to us about your perspective as someone that's been rapidly learning the last couple of years about how venture works well. What's your perspective on ecosystems, those kinds of things?
Yeah, my background's in professional gaming. I was a professional poker player for 8 years and then a professional sports bettor. So my background is very, very different than most in the ecosystem, which actually gives me a really incredible perspective coming into a new nascent ecosystem, because I'm as new as the ecosystem is, which is really, really exciting. I get to come in with that beginner's mind. I didn't come in with any allegiances or really a lot of deep knowledge or relationships. And so all those things get to be built kind of on the fly. So you can kind of think of my experience as emblematic of the experience of the ecosystem itself. So I'm growing and learning and connecting and meeting people and growing along with the ecosystem. So I don't know, it's fun to be, in some respects, a baby along with the ecosystem and be growing and learning.
Yeah, and that's the energy that I want to stay focused in today. I understand that there's things sometimes that don't work or whatever. Let's energetically be aligned to that which does work, that which we want to progress. It's kind of like where we put our attention, things tend to grow. So we can be frustrated and kind of understand that some things don't work as well as maybe they could. But instead, I'm just focused on creating massive results that Vegas gets some credit for, that our state of Nevada gets some credit for, whether that's the Raise Fundraising Summit, whether that's this big trip that the UAE government has asked us to bring all these founders out to, right? We give Vegas a lot of that credit, because we really do believe that this is an incredible place to do business. Biggest convention business in the world. All the heads of state come here. You get to meet with them. As an investor, I get to understand what the smartest people in every vertical have to say about where their industry is going. That's been so valuable to me in the 13 plus years that I've been here. Any other thoughts that you have on what you would like to see improve, but from a standpoint of like energetically, what are you for, you know?
Sure, so coming from a professional gambling background, my entire existence was taking, frankly. At the poker table, I would win money from other players at the table.
Extractive.
As a professional gambler and professional sports bettor, I'm winning from the casino, which is a little bit better. I much prefer winning money from them than under other individuals at the table. And so one of the things that really caught my eye in the ecosystem and the startup ecosystem is, for the first time ever, I can contribute and help build and help people. And so I try and lead with that ethos and just try and provide value whenever possible, and really with no expectation of anything in return, because I don't really need anything in return. All I want is to learn. If I'm learning, I'm good, and I'm going to lead with that, and that's really, really exciting to me.
I think that's worth giving a round of applause for, guys, because that is the energy that we need to be in. And frankly, I think a lot of individuals like Josh and David actually feel that way. That's the way they operate. Do you have any questions for Josh?
No. Ironically, your background to me almost seems like I'd rather have your background as an investor, because I mean, I don't know how you played poker, but if you survived, you have to at least know game theory and math and exploitive play and adaptive play and pivots based on players. And so, like, well, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I mean, are there any skills you brought from poker over to being an investor that you think are good for the ecosystem?
Quite a few. I mean, the first would be the easiest one. Funnily enough, the risk profile of a startup or investing in a startup actually matches closely 1-to-1 with a poker tournament. So when I first got involved, people like startups fail 80% of the time, and I was like, that's extremely intuitive for me. So failing at poker, when you're playing poker, when we bet in sports, we win 56% of the time, 57% of the time, you get very, very, very comfortable with failure and iteration. And beyond that, in both sports and poker, networking is huge, and kind of taking that ethos and then reframing it into a positive sum game rather than a zero sum game that poker is has been kind of the biggest takeaways.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Joshua Curtis. Glad to have you here, buddy. Okay, Mr. Vic Yacht, come up here. This is my buddy Vic Prakash, and he's going to come share with us a little bit. He is doing some crazy work in ecosystem. Come sit over here if you don't mind, real quick. You've got a very unique view because you're in the data center business. And one of the things I love about one of the things I love about your vision is you guys are not just concerned with the box, which is the data center. You're not just concerned with the water, the power, all of the surrounding things that are required, for these data centers to come alive. You're concerned with the workforce development, and you're concerned with just the general development of entrepreneurship in and around those communities. And so I'd love for you to talk. I mean, I know you're learning at a lightning pace. Some of your clients and customers and partners are some of the largest companies on earth that are working to develop this in, I know 25 cities in the beginning, but hundreds of cities across the United States. And I also love your patriotic belief in the United States and innovation here, which is really, really awesome. I feel the same way, even though I'm rooting for all founders everywhere.
Kurt, which mic?
It's both. Yeah.
Kurt, thank you for pulling me out of the audience. Pleasure meeting all of you. Thank you for making time on a Saturday. Kurt has done a phenomenal job of not only building up this community, but he does this around the world, guys. So give a hands to Kurt, please, and his team.
Thank you.
I call Kurt a live wire. So whatever you need in the startup world, Kurt either can get it done or knows the person that can get it done. That being said, when we built our company here, Digitech, we're a data center development company that is focused in on building economic development zones across the world, but focused in America. And the biggest problem that we're facing here is data sovereignty. All of your data today, everybody's data, is taken to 3 different hubs, one in California, one in Seattle, and one in Virginia. That cannot happen anymore. So what we're doing is we have partnered up with a major hyperscaler that has been in the news recently, and we are dedicating our resources to build these data sovereign research and development data centers here in all the communities. So if you know anyone that is looking to protect their data, wants to get involved in this, please reach out. We'd love to talk
Let
to
me
you.
explain that in practical terms, guys. Where the data sits is where the value lies, and if the value is your data is moving to Virginia, that's where the financial opportunity goes. So what they're essentially saying is they want to make sure that where the value is created locally at the source is also be able to share in the upside that's created in each local area. Does that make sense? Especially in the world of AI. Okay, we got some questions about that. We'll get to that. Anyway, so you're talking to some of the largest communities out there. You're talking to entire states about these kinds of things. What are you seeing from an ecosystem level, especially since I know you and the team, as I've sat with you guys on the strip and met some of your partners, you and the team is very focused on the community side of this and how it's going to affect workforce development and innovation and entrepreneurship.
Right, it's a community focus first, right? We need to develop the community to take on these challenges. So we're talking with first the economic development authorities of every single state from the governor down. And we're also talking to the universities, the big business, small business, and giving them an opportunity to take charge of their data and build these systems so that way the local population can get the benefit, right? We don't want the data to go travel to these hubs. We want to create data centers in the local environment and retrain a lot of the populace to take advantage of that. So rather than losing jobs, we want to focus in on training you how to use AI, how to use the data centers properly. So our grand vision is building economic development zones where data, power, and manufacturing come into place. So just for an example, guys, give you some contextual understanding. So out of the state of West Virginia, we made a proposal that we would do about 6,000 jobs, direct jobs. And that economic impact is about 45,000 indirect jobs. So that means that that same center, that economic development zone, and we can replicate that across the state. These are phenomenal long-term jobs where 10, 15, 20 years down the line, we still see impact.
David, any questions for Vic?
I don't know if it's a question as much as a reaction. I mean, one of the things that all of the VCs I put in this club of 20 that we talk about are how do we not only create value and growth but impact?
Right.
And so we know, for example, that when you create minimum wage jobs, you don't really solve the problems you think you're solving. So for example, we know that when you spend more than 30% of your income, net income, on housing, domestic violence goes up, alcoholism, addictions, abuse, depression, suicide, just go across the board. I mean, you can plus minus, but order of magnitude, that's about right. And so creating not just here's more fast food jobs, but jobs like you're talking about. And you see this also in like some of the, I didn't show you some cities like Guadalajara and Monterrey, Mexico, that were literally drug infested areas in the particular sections of those cities 30 years ago. Today are vibrant tech hubs because someone like you went and decided, I'm going to build here and create jobs that reverse brain drain, make people not go to the US and never come back, or never go to the US at all because we have our local education. So, I mean, this is impact.
Yeah.
And I'll put numbers like that against any international development agency any day, what you're doing. So, you can do all three, growth, value, and impact. And it's not a question, it's just yay.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Vic. Thank you, Vic. Thanks for being a part of the Vegas ecosystem. And by the way, guys, they're just as passionate as you hear the passion, from those of us that are here building here about Vegas. Absolutely. All right. Okay, so a little bit more about the Wild Wild West, guys. Being a founder, if you guys know this scene, this is probably my other favorite scene in this movie. I won't ruin it for you. It's at the very beginning of the movie. Butch is sitting down with somebody playing some poker. Josh probably taught him how to play. And Sundance had quite a reputation for being a gunslinger. So I won't ruin this scene for you, but I will just say sometimes you need to know when to hold them and when to fold them. And it's right. It's about playing those cards right. This means relationships right, your capital cards right when you're fundraising. Absolutely. Okay, this is David Frazee. Another round of applause for Mr. David. You want to connect with David? You scan this, demystifying Silicon Valley up there, which I really appreciate that he is doing that, taking the best of what Silicon Valley's done for the world and making it very clear to everybody. Awesome. And look forward to more programming from David and I. And David has come to Fusion 42 and has had some sessions that he's been a part of. We've really enjoyed it, and so has the audience and the founders from all over the world, including all of the other audiences that he has presented on his own for the last 25 years. This is Fusion 42. Next week, we have the Global Super Accelerator launching. This is our next 8-week program. It is equity-free, very, very low cost. We have a few options. There's a paid option, a free option. If you're smart, you'll get the paid option. We can break those down for you. But we try to do everything we can to be as accessible as possible. Almost everything Fusion does, guys, is free. But the paid option gets you an extra week. You get to pitch during the time that we're running all the sessions, and there's a bunch of other benefits. Dubai Tech Experience, the Dubai government, UAE, because we're co-based there, and we play fairly big baseball there. They came to us and they said, out of all the organizations in the United States, we want to work with Ghani Consulting out of Arizona and Fusion 42 out of Las Vegas. And we want you to represent the entire United States, no pressure, and bring the best 50 founders you guys can find to present. Mr. James Ritchie here from Las Vegas is going to be representing. Give him a round of applause. To present at the Dubai Tech Experience, which is at GITEX. GITEX and Northstar are the two largest startup and technology conferences in the world, twice the size of CES. Think about that. CES is massive. These founders will be at our US Pavilion booth where they will get to present, and we will be setting them up with individuals there when they are doing their individual pitches to man that booth for them to explain to the well over 100,000 guests that will be coming by the booth. We're right next to the ministers, and they will be meeting the ministers, pitching the governors of the entire country. Last year, they had 4 pitches a day, and they came back successful with funding, government pilots, those kinds of things. It's 10 days of events that we have planned. And so we're also representing Las Vegas and the state of Nevada and the Rocky Mountain region that I love so much. So that's the Dubai Tech Experience. It's going to be crazy. They're going to be exhausted when they come home. And guess what? The real work begins when we all get home. When we have to go around to all the Dubai partners that we have and remind them of the founders they met so that we can get deals closed, so that we can get founders supported in the region, but also capitalization here in the United States. You know, being a startup founder is not all bad. I'm a big bicycle lover. You guys know that. I love mountain biking. Sometimes this is what the day can feel like, right? It can feel awesome. It can feel like you're free, you're flying. Sometimes it's also like you get the feeling that, hey, this is going to work. I'm going to get to ride off into the sunset. This is in southern Utah. If you guys have not been there, this is less than 2 hours away from here. If you've not taken the opportunity to go and check out how gorgeous Zion is, how unbelievably beautiful it is, go do it. If you don't have time for that, go drive the Red Rock Loop. How many of us live here and do not avail ourselves of the opportunity to get out and recharge just a little bit in this beautiful, beautiful place that we live in? Vegas, I think, almost has it all. And as a big outdoors person, I would not live here if some of this didn't look like some of that. And I am so grateful I've chosen to live less than 5 minutes away from the Red Rocks. And then, sometimes, just sometimes, we've got to take that leap. And we've got to jump before we know where we're going to land or what the fall is going to be like. Welcome to Who's Got My Money, guys. We'll see you guys next month, and we'll see you online, and welcome to Vegas. All right. Don't be shy. We got lunch for you guys.